Governor, thanks for joining us. This is an extensive opinion piece you put together, talking about accomplishments, but also forward-looking at what challenges the next governor may face. Why did you write this?
Does it read like I wanted to get a lot of things off my chest and just couldn't stop? No, for a couple reasons, I think. And first and chiefly, I want to make sure that the continuity continues. And we've had two of my successors approach the job in a similar way, whether it was aiming higher or taking it from good to great, or I always say, how do we take it to the next level? How do we improve? And that's not just an approach, it's almost cultural now. And that requires plans. It requires steps. It requires milestones. It requires measuring. And so I tried to put some things to be constructive and helpful to whoever follows, to look at this as almost a template. Like, these are the things that are going to come across your desk, and you'll have to deal with them, whether you want to or not. And there'll be some unforeseen, nature's wrath up in Winchester and Selma earlier last week. You'll have to deal with that too. The list could have gone on and on and on. I could have talked about the need for more energy addition, not just transition. So to each their own, but these are some of the main points that you're going to have to deal with. And then just practically speaking, folks are going to be voting April 9th. And so we're, 3 weeks away from when people will cast their vote, 50-some days away from the primary, and we know who's going to come out of our primary, and the Democratic Party will know who their candidate is. But it's time to start informing the electorate, and with the public polling I've seen and read, it shows that the winner right now is the undecideds. And I think there's a correlation between being undecided this late into the game and not having consumed the information you need to make an informed vote. And so hopefully this can spur some things along, and then it's up to all the candidates to identify and connect with their voters and then ultimately turn them out.
They're obviously doing a lot of advertising. There's been some debates. There will be more debates. Do you feel like those candidates aren't talking about the things that matter the most to voters?
Well, what I hear people that approach me is they say, we know what they're against. We know they're against masks. We know they're against illegal immigrants. We know they're against China. What are you for? And then tell me how you're going to do it. And we've made a lot of progress over the years, and we've got a ways to go. And I tried to be very honest about this in the op-ed that, we got work to do. And we need to, the Hoosier public needs to know that we're going to be focused on these things: education, workforce development, training, how we improve our quality of our communities and places and spaces. And that's what I think is not breaking through and connecting with the average voter at large. And I think to date, the polling that at least I've read from others that's been made public suggests that that's the case. So just a few days left to turn and burn.
Challenges, you mentioned workforce, and in this piece, you talk about leaning into future forward ecosystems, if you will. If you think about the successes that Indiana has had in microelectronics and electric vehicles, hydrogen, new energy, those areas, how concerned are you about that new workforce that will need to be created, that talent pipeline? How big an issue is that for the next governor?
For the next governor of 50 states and territories and prime ministers and presidents, it is the issue of the day. Whether, when you talk about just the momentum that we have going on right now in the state of Indiana, hypersonics, microelectronics, as you mentioned, radio pharmaceutical products that are sprouting up all over our state, the investments that are being made into defense, the future of mobility, et cetera, it's happening right now, and it's really scaling up. And so I am concerned that we continue to prioritize workforce development that's going to address where we need to be in 10 years from now. And look at the marketplace and let the marketplace and consumers guide us in the direction that we need to be going. But that's where we need to see real details about where investments will be made.
What needs to happen regarding workforce that hasn't happened yet? What would you like to see happen next to kind of propel that pipeline?
Brighter pathways lit up from K through 12 for lifelong. And because there is so much opportunity, we rolled out this, it's very interesting to me. We rolled out this one stop to start, kind of a concierge from the state. They're taking in a lot of incoming information. We're getting PhDs and folks with degrees that are calling in and saying, I want a different job. How do I get that different job? On the flip, which is encouraging because people want to, you want people to do what they, are passionate about and what they like. The other thing that's concerning to me is folks are less interested in the training and how you get the skill set to take that. And it's not just as easy as saying, I want to be Lesley or Gerry Dick for in my profession. You have to be skilled at it. So the good news is the state of Indiana, as long as our economy is growing, we can make investments into getting you affordable and make it accessible where you are in your life. And there's multiple options. That's the whole purpose from the perspective of one stop to start is we'll help you get connected with that next stop or step to start your career all over again.
What else keeps you up at night as you think about, I mean, you couldn't run for a third term, but if you were going to be the next governor, what would you be the most worried about going into that next term?
That we're going to lose market share in the areas that we have a rich heritage in. The competition does not sleep. And so it is fierce every time I'm anywhere around the state or the country. I'm just reminded that folks can make investments anywhere, and they're seeking stability and they're seeking certainty and predictability and continuity, and so I see that on a day in, day out, conversation after conversation basis. So I'm hopeful that will continue well into the future for the next 20 years, and making sure that as we create these ecosystems, be it in biotech or hypersonics or hydroponics, or you fill in the blank, plant genetics, that we have the workforce that is skilled and ready to go. That is I used to worry about just the workforce and the sheer numbers. Now I also worry about, and I alluded to this earlier, but having the power to fuel those enterprises. Because if you don't have that fuel or that power addition, that energy, then there's no place for those folks to go to work. So first things first, we have to make sure that we have the utilities to stand up these large-scale investments. We're going to end our first quarter here soon, obviously, and we'll, I think, break another all-time record for the first quarter. It only looks like it's going to grow for the next few quarters after that. So we're going to be, I always say, when I'm done, which is about 300 days from now, 7,200 hours, I'm going to have the baton in my hand, but I'm going to be running. Like someone's going to have to reach out and grab it because we have that much interest and growth opportunity in our state. Now we just have to make sure that we have the people who are skilled up to realize the opportunity that's before us that are, we're talking 160,000 a year salaries. So we're in a different place than we were 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago. And it's because we've got our house in order. And it's because we're now better aligned, I think, with our colleges and our universities, our centers of research, our institutes. That synergy is very attractive. And so we're just at the infancy of this. This is, you talk about the microelectronics hub and the hydrogen hub. These are areas where Indiana won't look the same 10 years from now.
You had an opportunity, or you have had an opportunity to have endorsed a candidate in the GOP race to choose who's going to take that baton or to help choose. So far you haven't. I think I saw that you said you might have an endorsement coming soon. What are you considering, and the things that you laid out in this op-ed, are you using those as a guide to make a
Yes.
decision?
For me, for sure. I mean, I want to learn more about where people stand on those topics, whether I endorse or not. I'll make that decision first, and then the who. But I want to make sure that I thoroughly inspect who is going to lead on those issues. And that will require some new ideas, not just regurgitating or recycling what we've been doing or what Mike did or Mitch did before. It means it's going to require some creative thinking. And I hear the word bold used a lot. Tell me in a detailed fashion what those bold plans are, because I can get pretty excited about that.
And have you been meeting with those candidates at all to talk about it?
I have not. And so this is just a very polite way. I hope it's received in the spirit of constructive and helpful. This is just the job. I think if any of my predecessors or any other governors in any other states, they'd say, yeah, this is the list. I mean, it's not something I just made up. And so I hope they use it as, like I said, a template to guide them when they get on the other side of the desk.
I want to touch on one more item before we go to break. You talked about the competition out there with other states. As you look at going after investment in all of these forward-leaning industries, if you will,
Yeah.
What does Indiana need? What's missing here in Indiana? You look at states with deal closing funds and all the types of things that make them very competitive and potentially attractive to business. Is there something that Indiana needs or more of that Indiana needs to attract more business, more industry to the state, to grow industry here?
We need continued commitment, which goes back to that certainty part, and continued investment on the state to partner with other entities that have proven how to do it. And so it's not that we're missing any link. We have, a wonderfully nourished and cultivated tax and regulatory environment, low cost, access to high talent, and great sites available for people to, realize their American dream ultimately and create a business or start a family. What we need is continued alignment and buy-in so that we're keeping more. Population numbers just came out. I was happy we were on the plus side again, unlike some of our close neighbors. But what we need is to keep more of that talent here. And that requires more of all of us for sure, but locals not taking for granted what's 5 miles or 10 miles or 20 miles away. Purdue's been there for a long time. And they have some of the smartest, brightest, gifted students. It's no surprise that companies from around the world are coming to West Lafayette to court them away. We need to do the same thing. We can't just rely on them being here and being smitten with all that's good, because people are making them good offers. And so we have to do a whole lot more of skilling folks up, getting them at our colleges, whether it be Vincennes University or Ivy Tech or our privates, not just our research institutions. I don't want to just dwell on that. We have to make sure that we are skilling up everyone and plugging those leaks along the way, addressing, reading proficiency, everything that we've been focused on. We just have to do a lot more of it because we are a small state in comparison to the competition. When you think about who we're competing against, it's Georgia, Texas, Florida, North Carolina, all much bigger states than us, geographically a footprint, if you're measuring it that way, and population. So every single person matters when folks are saying, I need 14 nutritionists, I need 17 electrical engineers, I need this many folks, to stand up this kind of operation. Can you deliver? And then we have to be able to answer yes to that every single time.
From a strategic standpoint, competitive standpoint, would you anticipate that the model of the LEAP Innovation District in Boone County, the state acquiring land, getting future forward-leaning industries, if you will, Lilly with a major investment obviously there, that model that would be used going forward, would be beneficial for the state to continue to replicate the LEAP model?
Has to. There's just no question. If you're not ready for investment, not attention, but investment, you're flown over. And we're done with the days of being flyover country here. And our capital investment is proving that out. So to have hundreds of different sites available on our inventory list of different sizes, they don't have to all be the LEAP size, but that's competing against Georgia and Florida. And if we weren't ready, with a site ready to go, we wouldn't be in the conversations we're in right now. And these opportunities will change lives and family prospects for the better for generations to come. And so absolutely, and it will require partnership for sure. This isn't saying that the state's going to come in. This is an eminent domain. This is the state and locals working harmoniously in unison with one another to realize projects on a scale and scope like few others do have the opportunity to bring home.
The LEAP is interesting because it does have its detractors.
Sure.
And some controversies. Do you worry at all that the person who comes after you might decide to go another direction and not continue with LEAP or may not use that method in other areas?
Completely fair question, and one I've thought a lot about. I think we're moving down the road. We'll have to prove it, and I've always said in terms of water the elephant in the room here is there enough water for not just north central Indiana, but for that project as well. And we'll prove that there is. We'll let the facts speak for themselves. And we'll have to have as I mentioned, the energy. And I think the investment will speak for itself as the rest of this year unfolds. And so when you're able to attract the quality of companies and the work of the future, that's really future-proofing and giving people opportunity to go on to pursue higher education or a career that's going to not just pay bills, but contribute to the Little League and build community. This is what I feel threatens the globe at large, is the lack of community. And having good jobs/careers, that's the antidote to it all. That is what helps build communities. So I think as much as I may worry about it, I'm even more excited on the path that we're on, that people are saying, you were smart to do this, and we're interested in being there.
And you think that evidence could
Absolutely.
be there before the next governor takes office? Yes. You think that evidence is going to be there?
I think much of it will, and you'll be able to say Exhibit A was before and Exhibit B is after. Which do you prefer? Do you want to be on the side of growth and opportunity or the status quo? And it requires the state to work with locals to answer that question first and foremost. And those locals, again, that we've been able to put this land together, have spoken as well.
Governor, certainly infrastructure has been a big focus of the state for some time now. Everybody sees the big projects around the state. I-69 has long been wondered about, talked about, debated about. Do we have a date for the I-69 opening?
We will, and it will be before I walk out that door for the last time. It'll be later this year, and NDOT will keep us all informed, but think fall time.
In terms of further down I-69 to Evansville, southwest Indiana, certainly a lot of focus now on the I-69 bridge across the Ohio River.
Sure.
What's the outlook? What's the forecast for construction and ultimately completion there?
Yeah, again, I-69 will be absolutely completed when that bridge is built across the Ohio River, and we'll obviously continue our approach. We, in the last budget, allocated another $200+ million to make sure that we could do our side of the river, the approach to our side of the river. And then construction will turn, the Kentucky will turn, and we'll partner and build the bridge. And so that will be not just erasing that missing link that was in Indiana. Think about in the 70s, we completed I-69 up through Fort Wayne up to Michigan in the 70s, and we haven't had this. And now we've gone from talking about it, debating about it, arguing about it, discussing it, one route, next route, to actually 5 segments done, sections. The 6th will be done this year, 3 years ahead of schedule. Think if we would have drawn it out, how much more it would have cost us as a state. Had we not moved another 600 million over, renegotiated the toll road lease, threw off another billion, moved 600 of that million into completing I-69 3 years early. And to live in this inflationary time period right now, that saved us a ton. So bridge, final mile will be done, and I'll live to see it.
You and your predecessors have used creative ways to fund some of these projects, including the toll road lease, the renegotiation of it. What does the next governor face in terms of trying to fund infrastructure and finding some of these creative ways to do it?
That was one of my points, is as the world turns and changes, considering the electrification of the future of mobility, what that will mean to our revenue source in terms of roads and bridges. And that's what I want to hear more about, because when you think about really capitalizing on what the logistics industry means to a state that, #1 manufacturing state per capita in America, our ability to connect in every which way, be it ports, air and water, road and rail, broadband internet connections, to me, what's proving to work is getting creative and saying, how do we bring in industry? How do we bring in the state? P3s are a fabulous approach, in my opinion. It's obviously worked. But that's also what we're doing with broadband internet. And now with the federal government, local government, state government, the industry, we'll be doing billions of investment in broadband internet connections right as this $868 million federal dollar program comes online as well. And so this is exactly what I want to hear more about, is with a finite amount of revenue and a lot of different priorities and policies going into January, this is what you're going to have to be dealing with and thinking about right now. And, I can remember, you've just reminded me, going back to 2003, 2004, how time flies. But that governor, ultimately Mitch Daniels, decided we were going to commit ourselves to building that first section. And it made it almost inevitable, or pressure was on, for the next folks to complete the task and the job. And here we are already, and we'll be able to say we did it. But it was because of creativity and courage. And committing to, this is the challenge, we're going to solve it, now how? And then going out and selling the public.
When you talk about high-speed internet access, in your view, is it internet access? What are keys to rural economic development, to some of these communities that feel maybe they've been left out in the economic successes here? Sure. They aren't literally connected. What's going to be key to uplifting some of these communities, smaller communities around Indiana? Yeah,
community crossings. So for sure, making sure that your community is spruced up, is got broadband internet, it's got the road connections, but also getting out and selling the community. Because what we're seeing is, when you look at a couple battery factory investments up in Howard County, there's almost $500 million in suppliers that are going to rural counties around them. And so what I've been so heartened by are these other communities nearby saying, this can help us. Residents are going to want to live in these high quality of place and life communities, which are oftentimes smaller, because you're close to the hub or the urban area, but you can buy a whole lot more land and beauty, if that's your speed, nearby. And so making sure that's why the READY program was very deliberate and effective, because it pulls in, it's this healthy balance of cooperation and competition.
The READY program started under Mike Pence, and you have continued it through your administration. How important do you think it is that there be future rounds of READY, or could there be a different path?
I hope that there are future rounds. He started it, then Governor Pence started it. It was about $26 million in 3 different regions. And he was right. the legislature was right. It worked. It proved out the concept that if you can get people to work together from the ground level up, and the state says, we'll put in good money and more will chase it from the sidelines, we took it and put it on steroids and said, we want 500 million, and we want the whole state to self-select. Ultimately, 92 counties did. Picked their regions. And what you saw occur was, again, this healthy balance of cooperation amongst rural, urban, suburban, and competition with other regions. And that lifts, that's truly not just the sum is greater than all the parts, but it lifts all boats when you start to see quality of place improvements realized. YMCAs, housing, $4 billion of the $12 billion in that first Ready Round program, round one, was for housing and housing infrastructure. Critically important. Never would have happened if we could put another $75 million into a revolving loan fund. This did it on its own, statewide. And so whether it's, we worked with the Lilly Endowment, and I'm just still giddy about their commitment to this program because they saw it work. And for blight and cultural amenities, arts, et cetera, in all these different communities, I would recommend to whoever my successor is to think about Ready Round 3 already, but think about it for a specific issue. Like I was just noticing successful communities that were addressing blight, converting dilapidated, vacant buildings into mixed use, where there used to be crime and now there's people wanting to move there. And those success stories just prove that if we had more resources to do this statewide, oh, what a different place it would be. And so now you're seeing a ton of interest in rural communities, small towns saying, we've got blight, and urban areas, the complete opposite ends of the spectrum saying, we have blight, and we can make this a magnet for involvement, and whether it be parks or mixed use, living units, et cetera. But it requires a plan, and it requires steps, and it requires commitment. And so hopefully, yes, there is a Ready Round 3.
As we look at regions around the state and regional economic development, Governor, as you look to that next administration, I know you don't want to play favorites, but as you look into that next hotspot, you look in Fort Wayne with the downtown development there, with the big data center going in there, Jeffersonville and Southeast Indiana, another big data center in that region. And increasingly, we cover stories in Northwest Indiana, the double tracking expansion of the South Shore, the Quantum Corridor. They've got a lot going on, a population increasing for the first time in more than a decade. Where are we going to see that next maybe growth pocket outside of central Indiana?
I really think because of our industries, whether it be isotopes, radiopharmaceutical products, microelectronics, chips, semiconductors, battery, advanced manufacturing, defense, life sciences at large, logistics. When you look at our state and the required power and data needed, if we can become a state where we have the data, this puts us in a very strategic position. And making sure that those investments are spread out as if you're looking at our interstates will be very advantageous to us as well, because when you look at, you mentioned Southeast Indiana going up to Northwest Indiana, if you just think about that distance, I-65, going from River Ridge and the explosive growth there, Cummins Corridor, Central Indiana, and all the biotech that's going to explode here, up through Lebanon, up through West Lafayette, all the way up into what you arrive at, you're a neighbor to the third biggest economy in the country. LA, New York, Chicago, the region. And the investments that we're making there are proving, and I'm rooting for Chicago. I want them to do well. They do well, we do well. Folks are making their own minds up, whether it be to live or or build a business, that the grass is greener, turns out, on this side of the border, on the Indiana side. And so it's incumbent upon us to make the investments, infrastructure and the like, whether it's at Burns Harbor, our port that gets you out to ocean access, or commuter rail, like double track on the South Shore line. So all of a sudden, what used to be double tracked up into Naperville and Wheaton is going across to Michigan City. First time in over a century that we've double tracked this thing. And so the Westlake Corridor expansion, I could go on and on and on, but the investments that we're making in partnership with their vision in Northwest Indiana is flat out exciting. And it's just, in my opinion, in the last 5-10 years, they turned a corner and they're moving full steam ahead. It's not just the train, it's the whole region and that economy. And truly the best is yet to come. I'm really, really bullish and excited about Northwest Indiana.
You know, I hear you talk about a lot of these investments, things that need some continuation. I'm wondering, as you look to the next governor, your approval rating is, it's people, I don't even know quite how to say it, but people are, a third of the people approve, a third disapprove, and a third don't have a strong opinion. Yeah. How do you persuade the next governor that these are the things they should be doing, even though it doesn't feel like Hoosiers are having an especially strong response to them?
Yeah. Well, I would let your polling be dictated by doing the right thing, and let your legacy or the history of your time here be the judge, and make sure that everything that you're doing, as you measure the results, and if you're going to be doing things new, not everybody is going to warm up to them. But in hindsight, and when I go out, the number of people that come up to me, kind of my poll every day, that say, actually, thank you for, whether it was during COVID, is the opposite of a lot of polling that I see. And so do the right thing and the rest will take care of itself. Build a strong team, have a plan, share the plan, and know that if you can look back and see the amount of investment that has made a difference in someone's life, that will be all you need.
So you haven't decided, is that fair?
That's fair, accurate.
You haven't decided whether endorse, and how soon do you feel like you'd have to make up your mind for it to matter?
Well, I think in the next few weeks. To be fair, I want to make sure that folks have a chance to respond to these issues. By the way, they may not want my endorsement, So I'm just trying to be helpful here with these issues for them, for whoever ends up in this behind that desk. And they don't need my endorsement, but if you're getting kind of strategic about it, you would want it to be probably 30 days out or something like that. So we got a few more weeks.
And do you expect to, you said you were doing this sort of passively or politely, do you expect that you might end up having some conversations with folks after this opinion piece comes out?
My door is wide open, and my record is clear. We have shown Hoosiers where we want to take this state. I'm very proud of the team and the record. And if they want to pick my brain, I'm here.
Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb, thank you for taking the time to join us for a great conversation. We look forward to seeing what's next.
Thank you.